Welcome everyone to the SFGL Podcast. My name is Nino and I'm here with Lucy Byrd Hope, author and mindset coach. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. We've got lots of good things to talk about. So welcome, Lucy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here as well and to talk about your journey. So I guess we can just jump into it. Tell me about how you started on your entrepreneurial adventures and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I've always been really interested in the mind-body connection. I majored in psychology at University of Texas, and soon after graduating, I started my first entrepreneurial venture, which was in the animal world. I ran an animal nonprofit and got into microchipping. And then about 5 years ago, I went through a really painful corporate divorce, leaving that company. And that pain is what motivated me and became the purpose behind really everything I do now. The book that you mentioned, Daily Alignment, it's a compilation of tools to balance your body, mind, and spirit. And that arose totally organically in my life. I was going through that really intense, painful time. And every day I would just wake up feeling so awful with anxiety, depression, these automatic spiraling negative thoughts. And throughout the day, I would learn different ways to feel better. I would read a book or talk to a therapist or talk to a friend and have some skill or tool that helped me feel better by the end of the day. But the next morning I would wake up just feeling awful again. And so I decided to circumvent this by writing the things that I learned that helped me during the day down on a piece of paper and putting it right by my bed. And the moment I opened my eyes, I grabbed that paper and replaced all those automatic negative thoughts with these tools that had been serving me. And that paper became pages on pages, and I self-bound it into a book for myself. And I was encouraged to publish it, and that is where Daily Alignment came from. So it was a really, really organic part of my journey. And then the mindset coaching as well. I am a mindset guide and a holistic guide and mindset coach. So I see clients one-on-one and in a group setting, and I promote physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And I use Reiki and shamanic practices, which I also got into as a result of not feeling well myself and just needing something to feel better. And I received Reiki and I went to get certified in it. And a couple certifications later, my teacher said, you should start a practice. And that's where my company Lucid Lotus comes from. So it's been really cool for me to see how my pain can serve me if I find a way to channel it and use it to motivate me to do something new and broaden my horizons.
Yeah, I've seen that's an incredible skill that entrepreneurs have. They take an experience or something that caused them pain, and they then learn from that and grow from that, and then use that to help others solve that same problem. And it's your clear example of how you've done that. You've done it multiple times with different things. I'd like to go back to the first thing, which you said the chip-in business. How did you get into that? Like, what inspired that? And jumping in your first business, like, what were some of the lessons learned there?
Yeah, well, it was so interesting. I really got into it because I wanted to go to school of social work, and I applied to that at University of Texas, and I didn't get in. And when I contacted the admissions office, they said your scores and your GREs and everything were good to go. It was just the essays you wrote. It seems that when you help, you almost get like too involved. And for social workers, that can be a sign of burnout, like people that almost care too much. So they said, we'd love for you to get some real life experience, some more real life experience where you kind of toe that line. And so I went out into the world, and as luck would have it, I very quickly within the week saw this wonderful organization that was adopting animals out, and they needed food and other things and volunteers. And so I went up to them and said, I'd love to help out. And I didn't do as I was supposed to. I got way too involved, but it was a really good thing because I got involved in that organization and was a part of running it. And the issues that we were seeing adopting animals out and them already being microchipped, but it not being registered, or they didn't pay their fee, or I could go into the millions of problems with that. By seeing the problems on a daily basis, me and the other people in the company were like, I think we can solve these problems. And that's what we did. We created a company that solved all of the microchipping problems we had seen to at that time.
Yeah, that's incredible. So just your ability to recognize the problem, see the gap in the marketplace, and say, yeah, I want to fix that for people. So was it just you, or did you, it sounds like you had some kind of a business partner.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that dynamic like? And why did you move away from that eventually? Like what were the things you ran into?
Yeah, totally. So I will say, as my first entrepreneur ventureship, that was really kind of the only issue that I found that I've solved going forward. I didn't, it wasn't copacetic with my business partner and I. So that was what led to me leaving the company, was really trying to get in there and change some things and make them better, and being met with such resistance that it just led to this divide that eventually became a corporate divorce. It was a really hard time, but I know that was essential for me on my journey now as I look back, because I learned so many skills to starting a company. Not only did I love what I was doing, and I'm glad I got to help pets while I was there find their home, but I also learned the basic skills of building a business. I mean, a very successful business. It's a super successful business. So that's helped me apply those skills to my current entrepreneurial ventureships. And I know that the pain I experienced during that has helped me with now. So that really helps me look back and see it all as having meaning and purpose, because otherwise it can just be kind of depressing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. You mentioned, it gave you a lot of skills. Specifically, I'm kind of curious about like what your role was and the types of skills you had to develop to be able to run the business and make it so successful.
Yeah. So I was co-founder, executive vice president, and COO. So I did a lot of the behind the scenes organization, like keeping the ball rolling, everything to do with finances and customer service and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of skills that are learned there. I would say the biggest skills I learned were more overarching as well, like building a firm foundation. That is the biggest lesson I learned from my first company, to do things slower and more stable and build that really firm foundation that then you can build something really big off of, instead of just kind of, doing it all with a good heart, but just kind of getting it all out there. And it's kind of this jumble at the bottom. And then when you build on it, it starts to collapse. That was the biggest thing we learned, because it's a lot about patience and timing. And that can be hard to be patient, but it's much, much better to have that firm foundation. And then a couple other things I learned were that relationships are so hugely important. Not only whoever my business partner is, but whoever my employees are, whoever my customers are, whoever my clients are, whoever the other businesses are that I'm working with. It's really, a business is a network of relationships, and keeping those relationships healthy, nurtured, nourished, getting feedback, question and answer, teamwork. That is so key to success and happiness for everyone involved in a company. And that ripple effect goes outwards. Like, clients feel whatever the energy is that's inside the business. And so it's beautiful to have those good relationships. And then the third really big thing I learned was to build in phases. Like, it's great. I love having dreams and visions of 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, but to not start with those action steps for the things 10 years down the road quite yet. Have that in mind, and maybe have it on a piece of paper. Maybe have phases 1, 2, and 3, or maybe you have 10 phases. Who knows? Whatever it is that works with your model, but separating things into more digestible phases of growth is a really important tool that I've learned as well.
Okay, I love that. What, just out of curiosity, what were kind of what did those phases look like with your business? Just,
Yeah. So, okay, well, like, here's an example that I can give and how I have applied it going forward. So I also currently now I co-own a holistic beverage company called Holism. And that one is really for me because that's the only one currently that I have a business partner with. And so it was really healing and beautiful for me to take what I had seen before and to really kind of do it the opposite. The business relationship that I have with the co-owner is very respectful and positive and full of beautiful communication. And even our contract has clauses written around like if we're disagreeing, how to work with it. So that was important. And what we've done is we did do this building in phases. We realized for beverages there, for us, we found there was an initial phase of creating the beverage, getting it out there for people to taste, getting the feedback, building the buzz, kind of like that, getting the product stable, researching the ingredients, doing the testing, that foundation I was talking about. So phase one is kind of foundation. And then for us, phase two was getting it out in the market. We were doing all sorts of events. We started selling in local markets. We were just, it was out. The product was being sold. And then our third phase is currently happening, and it's a pivot to get to our fourth phase. Our third phase has been an intense one. It has been the decision to pause production on the milks, the drinks, the products, and refocus on bringing it in for our next phase, which will be getting into a big production facility, selling in places like Whole Foods, or it's really a big pivot and blend from phase 2 to phase 4. So we created this phase 3 that is an inward phase. And that was all based on my lessons from before, very intentionally. I said, hey, I learned this from before. I think we should build in phases. And that's what we've done. And it's been much more peaceful, much more serene, and stable of a process.
Oh, I can imagine. So, okay. So it sounds like with the foundation, the key pieces of that are making sure your product is right, making sure your business model is right, making sure you have systems in place, right? Is there anything I'm missing before you can like really
No, it's so beautiful. It's what you said is a great way to phrase it. It's like getting the systems, the gears, everything in place. And then another phase is like push and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
Launching it. I love that. Okay. So, I mean, you have so much experience in so many different businesses. I love this. I want to get into the Reiki and the shamanic stuff. Cause I don't know much about that. So, and I don't know if our listeners, have experience with those practices. So tell us a little bit about that. Like what about those things really helped you find? I just don't understand enough about it. So maybe explain it and tell us.
Totally understood. Yeah. And hey, there was a point where I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to phrase these things. So I totally get it. So basically, as I mentioned, Reiki came into my life with someone offering to do it for me based on what I was going through. And the feeling that I got, the actual experience that I got was just such a beautiful feeling that's why I went to learn more and get certified. So it is something that I recommend experiencing if you really want the full gambit. But basically, Reiki is a Japanese healing art. Rei is spiritually conscious and Ki is life force. So Reiki is its own spiritually conscious life force that I, as a Reiki practitioner, have been attuned to the frequencies and vibrations of, so that I can channel it through me into the client. So it's really just a healing energy that I have learned how, that by my attunement and the frequency alignment, I can bring through me into the client. And then the Reiki itself is what is going into your or the client's energy field and breaking off. It's such a high vibrational frequency that any lower vibrational frequencies that you have in your aura or your physical body or your mental body or your spiritual body, they will just break off and fall away as that high vibrational Reiki flows through you. And as you get more high vibrational frequencies in your energy field, that helps your organs to function better and your tissue, your cells to function better, providing that optimal thriving of your body.
Interesting. That's so fascinating to me. I need to learn more about it. It sounds like, but I've noticed, I mean, just a common thread with a lot of the people that I speak to, business owners, is that there needs to be this inner work done first, almost, to get to a place where you can help outwardly. I know that's certainly been true in my life. I mean, I have other ways. I'm religious, and I lean into my faith a lot to do that inner work. But it seems like, there's for some reason or another, there's whether it's anxieties or fears that we have to overcome, or other setbacks. Some people have trauma. It seems like common theme is working inwardly, and then using that energy and the newfound excitement or rejuvenation and whatever it is you caused, to then channel that success into what you're doing outwardly with your business and other things in life. So that's really fascinating to me, and I like learning about new practices that people are doing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I love what you said. I feel like it's almost like I or someone transforms, and then they can help other people transform. It's like once you experience the energy and then you have that, then you can share that. Totally. It's authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And you turn that into a business then as well, right? So tell us a little bit about that business. Are you still, servicing people with that? Are you still a holistic guide, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So I started that around 2020, so about 3 years ago. And I do a variety of going to clients' homes and working with them one-on-one there. I also work distant, and I also work with group settings. I call it a mindset coach because people are more familiar with that, but I really term it alignment coaching. It's basically getting in alignment with all of those bodies, that physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body. So I do a combination of techniques, depending on what it is. Basically, I will do like a guided meditation, whether it's a beginning of a Reiki session or beginning of a group class, and I'll walk you through a series of grounding techniques to get you into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest and that calm state where you can really be your highest self. So we'll do like breathing techniques and a body scan and sensory exercises to get the client grounded. And then if it's a healing session, I will guide them in a emotional release meditation. So working on self-forgiveness, I'll do exercises of releasing the past and releasing energetic cords. So just a meditation where they're able to release a lot. Our emotions can translate into physical manifestations, like mental pain can become emotional pain, can become physical pain. So getting in and releasing emotions and dealing with the thoughts can help release physical pain. Then if it's a healing session, then I'll go ahead and do the Reiki. And so that's just me channeling that while the client is on like a comfortable space. And then I'll bring them back with some sound therapy. So getting into the vibrations and frequencies of singing bells and drums and rain sticks can be very healing as well.
It sounds like an incredible experience that would definitely be beneficial to a lot of people. I know I could benefit from stuff like that as well. Let's talk about, you've done a lot. You've started multiple businesses, but I know that being successful requires more than just one, right? That you always rely on a team of people. So talk to me about maybe the key people that you've had in your life help you along your journey.
Yeah, great question. Totally. I mean, support is everything. Having the right support, asking for support, being ready to receive support, being open to receiving support, being open to delegating. Those are skills in and of themselves. So I'm really appreciative to have such a great team of people that have helped me. I will say my family has been really supportive of me over the years of my life. I have always pushed the mold and broken whatever rules or boundaries I could find. So I'm appreciative that my family has been so supportive in guiding me and just letting me be myself and loving me and supporting me no matter what I do. I have had great support over the past 3 years from my publicist, Bridgetta. She's an intuitive publicist, which is so cool. Ever since we first met, she was seeing things in my future that have come true. And it's been really beautiful and fun to work with someone so skilled and so skilled in the productive doing earthly energies and also aligned with that spiritual intuitive side. It's a really neat relationship. And then I'm really thankful to work with members of her team that help me with specific things they're good at, like social media or email campaigns or promotional campaigns or my website, that sort of thing. I'm so appreciative to have different people on my team through Bridgetta that help me with that. And then I will say, as far as Holism, the healthy beverage company, it has been so incredible to have my business partner, Ryan, be so supportive. We have been working on Holism for about 3 years. And the first year I was recovering so much from the pain and trauma from the corporate divorce that I was like a shell of myself. And he really helped me feel safe in a business environment again and see how that could be a positive and growing relationship. And now I'm so thankful to have it and to have his support. If I needed to take time off, he was there for me. If I needed to, he just really, really helped me through a difficult time and while running a business together, which is something cool to see that someone can hold space for both of those things.
I love that.
Yeah. No, I will just throw in that my animals, my dogs have been really special to me as well. I have, some of my crew has transitioned, but I've been with some of them for 15 years. And when you think about someone day in and day out, holding you when you cry and loving you no matter what, it's been a great source of support for me.
I imagine. I love that you bring up the importance of being in alignment with the people that you work with, because I feel like, in business, we're often so motivated just by the dollars, right? Everything is so. That's one of the negatives that I see in this industry is that there's such a focus on profit and generating more income and all that, and that's obviously important. It's the lifeblood of business, but really every business is a people business. It's about the people, right? And so you have to be able to connect with the people, especially those that you work with and you're trying to build something with, right? So I think that's a piece that a lot of people kind of overlook. They'll take a look at, your resume, your background, and they'll say, okay, yeah, like they have the experience. But beyond that, I feel like people, they forget to dig a little deeper and make sure that there's an alignment, maybe spiritually or with other ideals that aren't always on paper.
Yeah. I feel like it's really important for a company to focus on its why, as opposed to like the specifics of the money. And yes, the idea is that then the money comes, but that it's a different focus to allow the money to just come. When you're focusing on the mission, the purpose, the why, the reason, that message, just carrying that out can let everything else flow.
Yeah, I love that. I had a few experiences in my life working with businesses that didn't have a mission or purpose, and it showed. You felt it. Okay, let's talk about the beverage company and how did you get into that? Like, where did that inspiration come from, and why beverages of all things?
Yeah, so bring it back to that good old painful time I was going through. That mental pain manifested to emotional, manifested to physical, and I got really sick in my gut. I got infections and these just awful things in my gut because of all the trauma I was going through. And so I started working with a functional medicine practitioner, and we started healing the things that were going on inside of me, like overgrown candida that can happen a lot from stress. So in order to heal, I was doing these detoxifications where for a period of couple months I wouldn't have dairy, gluten, sugar, yeast, alcohol, like any of those triggering foods, inflammatory sometimes foods. So needless to say, I was on a pretty restricted diet. And so my friend Ryan came over one day when I was just really going through it. And he had brought me this almond milk. And he said, I made this with my own hands. It's dairy free, it's gluten free, it's sugar free. Like, you can actually drink it. And it was made with someone who is thinking about you and wanting to support you through this really hard time. Like, just here's something for you from a friend. And I took one sip and I said, you have to create a business out of this. It is so, the beverage was so good while also being so healthy. And I feel like that's a niche that can be hard to fill. Sometimes we can find healthy, we can find good, but can we find good and healthy? And I just was so blown away with the nourishing taste. It just felt good. I felt better as I was drinking it. And so a couple of months went by. He gave me a little time, I think, to recuperate. And then he officially approached me and asked if I would partner with him in this business. And I said yes. And the rest is history.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So, yeah, again, I love the ability to just say, yeah, this is an awesome product. Let's make it a business. I love that, that motivation to just take action. It sounds like that's such a key piece of this, right? Because I talk to a lot of people, friends and family, that always come up to me and they have ideas for businesses, but then, they for some reason or another, they're slow to actually put it out there and start that process of building a foundation for a real business, right? Let's talk about some of the challenges, because you mentioned earlier that, you're in this phase 3 where you're kind of refocusing inward. Let's talk about, why you're at that point, kind of what happened and, where you hope to go from here with it.
Yeah, great question. So what we do is called a pivot and blend. We try to continually, when I do this, and I say we now because Ryan and I try to do it, but when something isn't going the way we want it to in the business, or we're just feeling a big resistance or a big wall that we just can't get through, instead of just continually pushing and pushing on this wall that won't move, we'll pivot in any other direction and take a breath and then recompose ourselves going in that new direction. So we've attuned to ourselves to that on the path and listened out for that for a couple of years. And last winter, when we were in our phase of selling and we were in local Raleigh places and doing all the markets and it was going so great, after about 6 months of that, we realized that all of these goals we had on our kind of like to-do list, these big, finish our deck to pitch it to this certain investor, finish this sort of new testing we were doing to see if we can go into this production facility, right? These things that really get us to this next level, we were never getting to because we were just running ourselves ragged, keeping up with the phase we were in. So we realized that if we were going to get to the next phase, we had to get the time and energy and resources from somewhere, and it needed, we meditated on it and prayed on it and talked on it and brainstormed on it and all that stuff, and came to the conclusion that it meant releasing the busyness that we had done. We said, okay, we've proven that concept to ourselves. And now let's do a really hard and weird thing of releasing it and focusing on this next phase. And the big other thing we've been focusing on during that tradition, so we've kind of allowed the product to be transitioning, is we are focused on our podcast. So every week we do the Live Holism podcast, which we've been doing for about 2 years. And we talk about how we stay whole physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually each week, like any new tip that came our way or some new thing we're dealing with and how we dealt with it. So we're putting a lot of time and energy into that and building that and growing that. Because our mission behind our company is about bringing nutritional awareness to consumers. So we want to make being healthy fun, yes, but one way we do that is, for example, on all of our bottles, on the back, we list each ingredient and what it does for you. And we show you why we're putting these things in the drinks. And you can take that knowledge and apply it in other ways with the same ingredients. We're just creating this place where this community where people can feel supported in trying to find something that is better for them, but without it seeming so overwhelming. We're just trying to simplify it and give people the tools to incorporate it throughout their lives in any way that they want.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm on board with that mission 100%. I believe that we need to be educating people on better ways to live their lives. And that's really my aim with this podcast as well, right? To show people the kind of freedom that you can create through entrepreneurship. You said something that I wanted to go back to. You talked about how you were running yourselves ragged, with all the busy work, and it was preventing you from doing the things that would take you to the next level. I feel like so many people are stuck working in their business that they can't work on the business. But the fear for most people is that if they stop what they're doing, then, they cut off the money supply and they're going to bleed themselves dry. So how do you overcome that? I mean, what's your advice to people kind of stuck running themselves ragged, like you said? How do you help them get to that next level and overcome the fear of that?
Totally. And great question. And I will just say first that what I've done, for example, with holism doesn't translate to every business. There's in times like this, it isn't always that you cause it. Just with beverages and their own beast, that has been how it worked out. But I would say that whatever the new energy is that you want to bring in, whether it's going to that, bringing in the bigger picture, or if you're just feeling that busyness, having more balance or having more like a breath, or just whatever it is that you want to bring in a big way, one of the easiest ways to do that is to just start bringing it in a tiny way, even for like a second a day, or I have like one day a week that I will assign to a certain type of thinking, like 3 hours on my calendar, in order to start creating space for it. Because I'm the only one that can do that in my life. And then I'll put it for not 3 hours, but 5 and 7, and then make a whole day out of it and just like build that energy into my week. And so that's a great way that I've found to do things. Like, again, with holism, that's a specific example. And I know, we did pause, but honestly, what I've found overarching in all three of my businesses is that it's sometimes there's a full pause, sometimes there's a mini pause, and sometimes it's just bringing in a little of that energy and letting it grow. And then another thing I would say, I'm like talking on top of myself because this is such a great question, and I'm feeling like so many answers come to me.
I love it. Yeah, let's hear it.
At the same time, I would say that another thing to do, because it's a lot about how you feel about what you're doing, right? Like if you are feeling afraid and you're bringing in that fear, then that can cause kinks. There are lots of self-fulfilling prophecies and energy. I mean, whatever we're feeling, we're attracting. So if there's a lot of fear in there, that can be a part of the energies of the business. So I would say, instead of focusing on like the big overarching goal of where you want to get, it's just about nurturing a positive relationship with getting there as the first step. So like maybe the first step isn't a step getting there, but the first step is, I have a positive relationship with getting into this new phase of my company. I have a positive relationship with being in this busy phase. I have a positive relationship with being in a transitional phase as I move away from busyness and into something higher arching. I have a positive relationship with nourishing my business. I have a positive relationship with the mission of my business. And it's like getting into more of the alignment of the energy as a first step, instead of the doing as the first step. Because if you're in that there's some of that fear, there's some of that scared, and that those feelings, it can be more beneficial to pause and go inward and realign and get into that mental space where you are feeling good about things, and then go back out and maybe take some steps.
I love that. I love that.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if that makes sense.
That was a perfect answer. It was lots of answers, but they were all so helpful. So just to kind of like try and distill that a little bit.
Yeah.
So reframing things positively, I mean, that's incredibly important. But I really like what you mentioned about scheduling time to just think, because so many people, they don't even stop to take a breath. Really, they're just so caught up in it. And if they were able to take a step back, I think they'd be able to see maybe new opportunities. And and I think that's why it's so important to, like for me, I like going on walks. I like mixing up my day a little bit just to get away from it. Be able to put the phone down for a time and kind of unplug, and let my brain kind of just simmer on other things, right? I mean, that's, I think that's why a lot of people get good ideas in the shower, right? Because they have a moment to kind of stop and breathe and think sometimes, right? But we can be more intentional about that, and can actually schedule that space for ourselves to do that. And so I love that. I love that. And like you said, it doesn't have to be all at once. It can be in gradual increments, right? Just start small. And so I think that's really helpful for people. I really like that. Are there any challenges that, I guess I do want to talk about, the benefits, unexpected benefits, maybe of being an entrepreneur, but are there any other challenges, I guess, before we kind of move to that, that you faced that you didn't expect, that have, forced you to grow in interesting ways, being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will say one part comes from your own ability to discipline yourself with your time and your energy and your space. I mean, everything from being in alignment physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so you can be your best self. I mean, like I spend a lot of time aligning myself so that then I can go do something. Like I aligned myself for a couple hours before today. And so, I mean, it's just about, but that's all up to me, right? I don't have to do that. So there's this discipline and desire in me. I want to create like a positive word for discipline, like
Yeah,
just this,
practice or
yeah. There is a need to be able to self-practice whatever you need to practice. And that's different for everyone. And it can mean things that are fun too. Like part of my discipline is that I have to rest every Sunday and take the whole day completely off and not talk to anyone. And, so I mean, discipline doesn't have to be negative. It's just about knowing what habits and needs you have and being able to keep up with them in your own life. Like for me, I work from my home. So it's really important for me to have my space clean. And so, and that's different for everyone, but for me, that's a need. And so I keep up with things like that. And it's all up to me though. So there's this sort of self-inspired, like self-spark that can be very helpful when it comes to taking care of oneself and one's environment in order to optimally thrive as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. What are some of the other things that you've used to kind of help propel yourself and develop yourself? I mean, I know in our last call you mentioned, maybe doing immersive training summits, masterminds, that kind of thing. Talk to us a little bit about how that's helped you, those things.
Yeah, I get excited when you even mention it because I love learning. I've always loved, the more knowledge I can get my hands on, I feel like the better. I mean, I feel like that's a big part of what life is about. So I love any sort of immersive training. I've delved really deeply into so many types of therapies over the years. That was kind of my big first, like really immersive, like existential therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic therapy, really great tools to use. And then I have done, like with my shamanic studies, I did a shamanic level 1, a shamanic level 2 that spanned a couple of years that were really intensive. I've done a soul freedom class, level 1 and level 2. That was really intensive. That is freeing your soul from all the attachments of life, right? That was a really beautiful class. And then I adore the summits that go on. I'm thrilled and honored that I get to speak at them, at many of them. And then I also love listening and learning to them. I really enjoy, whether it's one I'm on or not, just hearing from different experts. It's so neat how we have the ability with technology to come together in this way. Like I I get to do summits in Italy and Canada. And I mean, it's just incredible that we can do that. And then to hear what other speakers in those areas of the world have to say, it's just so neat that we can have our fingertips on so much knowledge. And I think consuming it is great.
Yeah, I love that. Knowledge truly is power as a business owner. I mean, the more you know, the better off you are, like you said. That last little bit that you said at the end about how you love consuming it. So one thing that I've found is I have to keep myself in check with how much I consume versus what I'm producing. I don't know if you've experienced that, but how do you balance that? Because I think a lot of people, they get stuck in, just watching all the videos or reading whatever it is. And sometimes in most cases that doesn't translate into action and actually applying things. Right. So
right.
Comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a lot about building habits. So it's like, if you can get in there and build the habits and align, but you had me thinking something. I'm so sorry. Can you ask the question one more time? It was on the tip of my brain and it just exited.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, I asked about the balance between consuming content versus creating. Yeah.
So what I was going to say is you reminded me of something that is very important. I'm glad you reminded me. The balance of giving and receiving in my life, especially as an entrepreneur, I think has been very important for me to recognize and then balance. I initially began as a way over giver and wasn't receiving enough. And that led to me being totally burned out and depleted and just having to felt like it's starting my life all over. So ever since then, I have been very aware of keeping those energies balanced. So I can do that, have balanced energy of giving and receiving when it comes to my relationship with myself, like how much self-care I'm doing and all of that sort of receiving, nourishing myself, water, baths, time alone, inward time, and then the giving, helping others, uplifting, spreading my message, that sort of thing, keeping that in balance. I can have that balance and receiving with all of my relationships, with friends, with family, with my higher power, and with my companies. I mean, they're really like babies. So it's like having a proper giving and receiving in a mother-child relationship. I just find, at least initially, having the awareness that there are cycles of giving and there are cycles of receiving, and then feeling out what that means to you and your life and your relationships, and then just checking in whenever you can to where those are, and just continually keeping them balanced so that you're receiving enough energy to keep you going and to keep your cup full. And then you're also giving in any way that you feel guided to in this abundant universe.
I love that. I didn't equate, consuming content versus creating it with necessarily this, but I see the connection, and I love that. I mean, because it does. You can't give when you have an empty cup, or when you're working from an empty cup. And I've definitely felt that. I've fallen into that trap myself plenty of times where I've given more than I've received, and like you said, you burn out really easily, and you start kind of loathing what you're doing, and that's not a good place to work from. Let's talk about the benefits of entrepreneurship that you've found in your life, the freedom that it's created, and maybe other ways that you don't expect it, or didn't expect that it would improve your life.
Yeah, wonderful question. I mean, you mentioned freedom. That is the main word. The ability to set my own schedule and to be my own boss and to be in charge of my time and to be in charge of what I'm doing is so liberating. And it's just, freedom is just something beautiful that it's just great to embrace it. And it makes me think of what we were talking about before, like embracing things in small things. Like if you don't feel like you have a lot of freedom in your life, instead of getting discouraged, just bringing it in baby steps. Like I have a positive relationship with freedom, or scheduling 1 hour out of your week to be totally free, or maybe it's 1 minute, or maybe it's 5 minutes, but whatever it is, bringing it in. So yeah, freedom is beautiful. And then I would say the ability to follow my passion, like to have something burn inside of me and to be able to build it and let it come out of me and to spread that and to create something. It's just such a satisfying feeling to watch the journey, the evolution, really. It's like watching the evolution of something and then watching it to come into physical manifestation and completion is just such a thrilling and satisfying experience. I feel like it's part of why we're here on this earth, to evolve and to create. So it feels like a natural life force, almost like flowing through you that wants to be expressed. It feels good. And then I will say the ability to do unique things. Maybe this goes with freedom, but things like travel, or things like, for me, I need time away from my phone. So like time off grid, as they say, in order to recenter and be inward. And as an entrepreneur, I take a couple of days a week and I'm able to do that because I'm in charge of my schedule. That's a huge part that I feel like is part of the, whether it's freedom or maybe inwardness or just doing what I want with my time. It's really beautiful to have the ability to go off grid when I need to. And then I will say one of the biggest joys is helping people, is seeing people love whatever the end goal is, whether it's someone enjoying reading my book and feeling uplifted, or someone really enjoying one of the beverages and feeling better about their nutrition, or helping someone and seeing how they feel after a Reiki session or after a coaching session and watching them implement these tools in their lives and their lives get better. I mean, there's really nothing more fulfilling than that.
I love that. That's incredibly rewarding. And I've always believed that, the world is going to change for the better through entrepreneurs that, create the solutions and are finding new ways to help others. I love that. Starting to push up on our time. How can people work with you and connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm easily reachable. My website, Facebook, and Instagram are all Lucy Byrd Hope. So my website is lucybirdhope.com, and that's Bird with a Y. And Instagram and Facebook are also Lucy Byrd Hope. And you can get my book on my website or Amazon and other major retailers. But yeah, all of that is pretty easily accessible from my website.
That's perfect. I want to pick up a copy of your book because I just love supporting other people that are authors and entrepreneurs. And so I'm gonna purchase one. And I'm excited to read it. But I love that. I love that. You sound like an amazing person to work with. It sounds like you're really helping people find alignment in their lives, which I think is incredible and very important to being successful in your business, right? You have to be aligned because otherwise, you'll resent what you do and it won't translate, right? To succeed, you have to have positive energy, like you were saying, and your customers have to feel that and connect with you. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would maybe recommend or counsel new entrepreneurs to consider when they're starting on their journey?
Yeah, well, maybe two things. One is just for anyone, just the concept that we are all entrepreneurs. We are all creators. We all come from creation, and we all create every day, whether we're making a meal or whether we're planning a route to go to work or whether we're going out to dinner or whether anything that we're doing, when you're walking down the steps, you're creating your walk. And so, I mean, we are creators. So it's just about, if for anyone out there that wants to be an entrepreneur, they already are. It's just about harnessing that creativity and channeling it into a purpose. And for active entrepreneurs, I would just say that well-being and success and abundance are natural and flowing to you. It's flowing to all of us. It's just about aligning yourself with the habits and the tools and the skills that bring it in.
I love that. That's a powerful message. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed this. I hope I know our audience will get a lot of value out of this because you've really shared some important things. So thank you so much for your time. for everyone listening, please, connect with Lucy, but please share this episode with friends and family. Help us get the word out there. And of course, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this from. Thank you so much for being here, Lucy, again. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.